Imagine someone insults you. They raise their voice, interrupt you, twist your words, challenge your intelligence. Within seconds, your heart starts racing. You feel an almost irresistible urge to explain yourself, to prove them wrong, to win. But at that exact moment, something far more important than the argument is being decided. Not who is right, who is in control. Most people believe power is the ability to dominate others. History suggests something different. The people who influenced kingdoms, led armies, and shaped civilizations often understood one principle better than everyone else. The first person you must control is yourself. This idea appears in two very different traditions. One comes from Niccolò Machiavelli, who studied political power. The other comes from the Stoic philosophers, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, who studied mastery of the mind. Although they approached life from different directions, they arrived at a surprisingly similar conclusion. The person who loses control of their emotions also loses control of the situation. Most arguments don't begin with logic. They begin with emotion. Someone questions your competence. Someone disrespects you. Someone refuses to listen. And suddenly the conversation is no longer about solving a problem. It's about protecting your ego. This is where most people lose. They believe victory belongs to whoever has the strongest argument. In reality, victory often belongs to whoever refuses to become emotionally trapped. An argument is rarely just an exchange of ideas. It's a struggle over the frame. Who defines reality? Who controls the emotional atmosphere? Who decides what the conversation becomes? The moment you react impulsively, you've accepted someone else's frame. You're no longer leading. You're following. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that people are disturbed not by events themselves, but by the judgments they make about those events. Think about that. An insult is just a sound. Criticism is just another person's opinion. A provocation is simply an attempt to trigger a response. Without your reaction, much of its power disappears. That's why emotionally disciplined people are so difficult to manipulate. They don't give others easy access to their minds. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning that he would encounter difficult, selfish, and unreasonable people, not because he was pessimistic, because he wanted to remove surprise. If you already expect that people will sometimes behave badly, you stop treating every unpleasant encounter as a personal attack. Your emotional balance becomes much harder to disturb. Machiavelli approached the same problem differently. He understood that unnecessary explanations often weaken your position. When someone isn't looking for truth, explaining yourself endlessly doesn't create understanding. It gives them authority over your emotional state. Notice how often people demand explanations not because they want clarity, but because they want control. The more desperately you try to justify yourself, the more power you hand them. This doesn't mean you should never speak. It means you should choose carefully when speaking actually changes something. Silence is often misunderstood. Many people confuse silence with weakness. But there's an important difference between staying silent because you're afraid and staying silent because you're in control. One is surrender. The other is discipline. When someone immediately reacts with anger, they reveal something. They've already lost their emotional balance. When someone constantly interrupts, they may be afraid of losing influence. When someone begins insulting instead of reasoning, they're often protecting their own ego, rather than searching for truth. Once you begin seeing arguments this way, you stop viewing every attack as a threat. You begin seeing patterns, and seeing patterns creates freedom. Another mistake people make is believing they must respond immediately. But immediate reactions usually happen on your opponent's timeline. A pause changes everything. It slows the conversation. It gives your emotions time to settle. It forces the other person to reveal more. People often talk far more than they intended when no one interrupts them. They expose motivations, frustrations, insecurities. While they're speaking, you're learning. Information has always been a form of power. The person who observes carefully often understands the situation better than the person doing all the talking. But none of this is easy, because your ego hates silence. It wants instant revenge, instant justice, instant validation. That's why emotional discipline feels uncomfortable. The moment you feel anger rising, don't suppress it. Notice it. Name it. This is anger. This is fear. This is my need to prove myself. Simply identifying an emotion weakens its grip. Instead of becoming the emotion, you become the observer. This small shift changes everything. Arguments survive on mutual emotional participation. If one person refuses to participate emotionally, the entire dynamic begins to collapse. Of course, refusing to argue doesn't mean accepting disrespect. Healthy boundaries still matter. Sometimes the strongest response is calm and direct. I don't see it that way. I disagree. We're not making progress. I'm ending this conversation. No shouting, no insults, no long speeches. Just clarity. Real strength usually needs fewer words. There's another layer that many people never notice. Sometimes conflict isn't about the topic at all. It's a test. People test your boundaries, your confidence, your emotional stability. They want to know how easily they can move you. Every emotional reaction gives them information. Every calm response gives them uncertainty. Over time, something interesting happens. People stop trying the same tactics. Not because they've become kinder. Because they no longer work. Your reputation changes. You become someone who is difficult to provoke, difficult to manipulate, difficult to pressure. That reputation is more valuable than winning 100 arguments. Most conflicts follow the same predictable pattern: a provocation, an emotional reaction, escalation, exhaustion. Nothing gets solved. You can see this in families, workplaces, politics, social media. People often believe they're fighting for truth. In reality, they're fighting to protect identity. That's why so many debates produce heat, but almost no progress. Before responding, ask yourself one simple question: am I solving a real problem, or am I protecting my ego? That single question can save you from countless unnecessary battles. The Stoics believed freedom begins when you stop allowing external events to control your inner world. Machiavelli believed influence begins when you understand how power actually works. Together, these ideas point toward the same conclusion. Don't react automatically. Don't explain yourself endlessly. Don't fight every battle you're invited to. Speak when your words move the situation forward. Stay silent when silence protects your position. And above all, never allow someone else's emotions to dictate your own. Because the strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. It's the one who remains impossible to control.